change at the Federation. ESPN's Sam Borden reporting last Friday that Brian McBride will not return as general manager of the U.S. men's national team. He was reportedly out of contract. This after becoming GM back in 2020. Sam also reporting that while Greg Berhalter is still a candidate to return as manager, it is, quote, increasingly less likely that will happen in light of the fallout from the Berhalter-Reina family scandal. Herc, Brian McBride out. Is this the right move by U.S. Soccer?
I don't know. Can I be honest? Sep, and I say this with the utmost respect for Brian McBride. I don't know what Brian McBride did at U.S. Soccer, what that GM role really entails. You have Ernie Stewart there. So unless it's something we don't know about, a breach in protocol or something else, because is it really sporting? There were 2 goals set out for this U.S. men's national team, qualifying and getting out of the group, and they did them both. So where did it go wrong for Brian McBride? I don't know what his day-to-day duties were unless you're just an ambassador for club teams, from club team to the national team, and you're just making trips, making phone calls. Where did it go wrong? I don't know, and I say with all due respect, I don't know what he did.
Right. This is not the right move, Herc. This is a nothing move. This is a meaningless move. Brian McBride, to your point, is literally the middleman here, right? Ernie Stewart is above him. Greg Berhalter is beneath him. Ernie Stewart runs the show. Greg Berhalter is closest to the team, right? And if we specifically talk about the scandal that U.S. Soccer finds itself in right now, Greg Berhalter and Ernie Stewart are much closer to that scandal than Brian McBride.
Is it because of the scandal, though? That's what I don't know. Because I would be led to believe that there was a breach in protocol somewhere, and it's because of the scandal. But that could be the only reason you let go of him, right?
Well, that would be if it was a firing. This reportedly is the end of a contract and a contract not being renewed. Okay? But to me, this is a sacrifice. This is we know the fans, we know the press want blood right now, so we're going to sacrifice the middleman. And to me, that's just pointless because you've got the guy who admitted to domestic violence and the guy who unnecessarily took the call from an enraged mother, which led us into this scandal. That's Greg Berhalter and Ernie Stewart. If they're still fit to be in their jobs, I don't understand why we're getting rid of Brian McBride. And to further your point about just how important this position is, if you believe the reports from the Associated Press, we have no reason not to believe that. They report that when Ernie Stewart told the board that Brian McBride was not going to return, he didn't tell them if he would replace Brian McBride. I don't even know if we're going to see a replacement for this position because we don't know really what this position does. But if the one thing that you mentioned that Brian McBride might do is what his actual duties were, we should probably give him credit. Because you pointed out when the January camp roster dropped, you said, boy, look at all these clubs around the world when they don't usually release players, especially a club like, I don't know, Middlesbrough in the championship in the middle of their season, or Eintracht Frankfurt with a Paxton Aronson in the middle of their season.
Who has 2 games sandwiched into this January camp.
So those clubs, without having to, seemingly respect U.S. Soccer enough to give them their players in this non-FIFA window. So if that's the one thing you brought McBride in to do, he seemed to have done it well. You have a great relationship, apparently, with clubs. Certainly, if you compare it to the relationship FMF has with, like, Porto, Sevilla, anybody who Tecatitos played for.
Yeah. Even then, sacrificial how? You just mentioned that they just let him walk away. They just said, you're not welcome back, so to speak. They didn't fire him, so I really don't see where the sacrifice was. I go back to
because the fans will see it as a firing. The media will see it as, look, McBride out. That's what people want. People want to see blood after a scandal.
I think the fans are smart enough to be like, who else?
Right.
Who's
next?
Who's next? I think the fans are smart enough to realize that. I don't think anybody in their right minds thinks this is just something that's sporting related or his actual job. So there's more to it.
So let's assume that the fallout then isn't limited to McBride, or maybe let's not assume that. What do you think this decision about McBride tells us about what's coming with Greg Berhalter and his future with the national team?
I just don't see how there's any way U.S. Soccer can retain Greg Berhalter after everything that we know now. After him admitting domestic violence, and there's the thought process out there that was 30 years ago. He was 18. It's fine. I'm not for this cancel culture. I understand that thought process. I can get with, in some way, the psyche of, okay, it's still domestic violence and sponsors aren't down with that. And at the end of the day, the bottom dollar is the sponsor. And U.S. Soccer, who's been in just litigation with their own players for the better part of a decade, to have this stain on them, that's not a PR event they would like themselves. Listen, I was against Greg Berhalter for sporting reasons even before this drama, this incident, this saga came about. I don't see how they can retain him now. If anybody can convince me otherwise, please go ahead, because I see no probable way.
Again, according to Sam Borden in the report, increasingly less likely that Berhalter will be back. This can't be good for his candidacy, that's for sure, because it does feel like maybe, even beyond Berhalter, U.S. Soccer may be getting ready to clean house.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.